Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy Monday. Welcome to hour number one of our Monday night program. Our phone number, if you want to join us live and national, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And, man, busy day. The House of Representatives will remain in Republican control. That news coming out just a little while ago with votes that were still being counted, being finalized, and that being solidified. So the trifecta has been attained by El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. And that's great. That's great because now you can really move forward with your priorities. And moving forward is exactly what he's doing. Busy day with appointments, right? I mean, man, let's take a look at some of the news that's out here. You've got a number of appointments or expected appointments that were announced by the Trump team today. In addition to keeping control of the House, Trump has selected Lee Zeldin, former congressman and gubernatorial candidate in New York, to be the head of the EPA. And then you've got the border czar pick, Tom Homan. He's been on this program a number of times. Couldn't think of anybody better, right? Him, Mark Morgan, these guys know this stuff inside and out. Kudos to Tom Homan on that one. Let me see. Who else do we have here? Elise Stefanik, United States Ambassador to the United Nations. Kash Patel is now a top contender for CIA director. We've had Kash Patel on plenty of times. Excellent choice to be considered for that. Let's see what else we got here. Am I missing anything, Count? Did I get them all? I think I got them all. And guess what? Trump has now surpassed his 2020 vote count as more ballots have been counted, securing, again, 312 electoral college votes, winning 7 of 7 swing states. That means my prediction was both right and wrong, because I was right in that he was going to get 300 electoral college votes and win 6 of the 7 swing states, but he went beyond that. So kudos to him, and really, what a win for America. Now, a little bit of breaking news. Spirit Airlines was diverted, had to land somewhere after it was hit by gunfires entering Port-au-Prince, Haiti. So that went somewhere else. Oh, Stephen Miller. I'm sorry, I did miss one. Stephen Miller has been named Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. He was very, 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 very good on the border, and and I think he's going to do an excellent job moving forward. Elon Musk, his PAC, reportedly spent $200 million in their efforts in this 2024 election. And let me see, what else do we have here? Anyway, I want to get to some other stuff. It's Veterans Day, and and of course we want to remember Veterans Day. Veterans Day is a big day every year. It's the day right after the Marine Corps' birthday, so happy birthday to the Devil Dogs. And somebody who was both a Marine and a veteran was my brother Bobby, Robert Valdez. He passed away last year on the 8th of November. Of course, the Marine Corps birthday is on the 10th of November, and, of course, Veterans Day on the 11th of November. So it's always a somber time in looking back at his life. But I got to tell you about Bobby. Bobby is he's an amazing guy, and he was an amazing guy, and he lived an amazing life. Not only did he serve his country, but before and after he went into the military, he was always interested in the arts. And he came out of the military, and he worked as an actor. I believe it was a soap opera called As the World Turns. I might be wrong on that, but I believe that's what it was called. And on it, he met a young actress named Marisa Tomei. And they dated for a while. And I remember we met her once many years ago when I was really little. And I was like, oh, cool. And she wasn't really famous. She wasn't the Marisa Tomei of My Cousin Vinny yet, because, that happened, a decade or more later. But that's my brother Bobby. And he went on to open several bagel stores all over New York and sold them and made a bunch of money doing that. Really lived a good life. And I remember he and I were once in a race to see who could become a millionaire before we were 40. And he won, by the way. and Bobby lived really well. And he ultimately went on to buy a scratch-off, a tradition that my dad had started of playing the numbers, los numeritos. And he won on a $20 scratch-off. He won $5 million in New York, out on Long Island, Belmore, Long Island. And he had even more money. He went and bought himself a Porsche, bought a nice car for his son, my nephew. And he really, he lived it up like a rock star. And despite, the trials that he may have endured in life, he did what he liked, and he loved his family. And I remember his life, again, now a year and a couple of days after his death. He was a Marine, a patriot, and a good big brother. That's my brother, Robert Valdez. And I wanted to take a moment to recognize him. Now, on a less somber note and a more exciting note, open phone across America. It's what we do every day in the third hour of the show, and it's something I love doing. And I want to say I love it so much that I want to expand it a little bit. And I want to expand the open phones across America, at least for one segment every single hour. And so starting tonight, at least even if it's just one segment before the hour's over, I want to get in a good call segment with our callers across the country as we continue to add affiliates. I think since last June of 23 to now, we've added, I think, 25 new radio stations, 25 new affiliates. And we have an amazing team at Westwood One that does that work, and amazing listeners that make it possible. So I want to make sure that we're doing our live call-in, at least a live call-in segment every hour of the program, because I think that's important. And I want to hear from you guys, the American people, because you know what? I didn't expect to see this much news on a Monday morning. I honestly didn't. But I was taken aback by it, and I said, you know what? Who wants to wait 2 or 3 more hours before, once we kick off the show to really chime in on whatever they want? So if you have an opinion on this stuff or anything else, I want to get to that. And, of course, we're going to continue to honor Veterans Day tonight and all the other important topics. We're going to get into a lot of things, Trump's appointments and so much more, the crumbling of the Democrat Party and whatnot. But one of the things I want to talk about before we take a pause is a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. And tonight we've got a really good guest lined up, several, obviously. President Reagan's son, Michael Reagan, is scheduled to be with us a little later. And we're going to discuss Veterans Day, and we're going to discuss a lot of the work that the Reagan Legacy Foundation does with veterans, and et cetera. We're going to discuss the Trump election and, of course, all the things that are happening in America at night. But we're also going to have some conversations a little bit later with Professor Nick Giordano, one of my favorites. He's out of New York, a conservative tenured professor out of New York. How about that? And he's going to be joining us a little bit later, and we'll be talking about some of the reaction from the left and from professors to this historic Trump election. But we're also going to talk about his reaction to some of the news about Tom Homan and Congressman Mike Walz being chosen as National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, Senator Marco Rubio. I mean, these are huge announcements that we've heard today. Elise Stefanik as UN Ambassador, and Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. So kudos to all of them again. But we're going to continue that conversation. And before we do all of that, I also want to have some conversation with Paul Dillon, who's going to tell us a little bit about Veterans Day and the importance of employment and mental health and so many things that veterans deal with. And he's a veteran himself. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Some time back, I received, in the name of our country, the bodies of 4 Marines who had died while on active duty. I said then that there is a special sadness that accompanies the death of a serviceman, for we're never quite good enough to them. Not really, we can't be, because what they gave us is beyond our powers to repay. And so when a serviceman dies, it's a tear in the fabric, a break in the whole, and all we can do is remember that with them, we are the last best hope of man on earth. Without them, we are little more than the crust of a continent. When I am some thousands of miles away, believe me, the memory and the importance of this day will be in the forefront of my mind and in my heart. Words alone cannot express our gratitude to the brave men and women who took on the task of protecting our country from foreign threats and aggression. President Coolidge once said, "The nation which forgets its defenders will be itself forgotten." Nothing is more important to the soul of America than remembering and honoring those who gave of themselves so that we might enjoy the fruits of peace and liberty.
That, of course, President Reagan on veterans and those who've served and lost their lives. And on this Veterans Day, I thought it was appropriate to do that again shortly. We're going to be joined by President Reagan's son, Michael Reagan. But right now, I want to talk about the importance of employment for veterans after they've served, veterans getting involved in entrepreneurship, veterans dealing with mental health issues, especially as they relate to the work that they have to do. And this, I think, is critical because clearly there are people that are in charge of, bringing attention to this. But just as clearly, there is not enough attention being brought to it. So Dr. Paul Dillon, he's at the Sanford School of Public Policy at Duke University. He's here to tell us a little bit about it. He himself is a U.S. Army veteran serving in Vietnam as a first lieutenant and was awarded 2 Bronze Star medals. Dr. Paul Dillon, welcome.
Thank you so much, Rich. It's really an honor and pleasure to be on.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you making the time to be here to discuss veterans. And I'd like to start a little bit with you with respect to employment, entrepreneurship, mental health. These are all very important things. And I know whenever I have a chance to talk about them, we talk about them, but I feel like we don't talk about them enough. So tell us what's going on.
Well, first of all, I think that it's important to mention to your listeners, Rich, that there are 2 misconceptions about veterans, particularly the younger people who have come home from these recent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And that's the first misconception is that all these young people are broken in some ways. And some are. There's no doubt about that. And those people need to be taken care of. But, it's been estimated that roughly 11 to 20% of these young people coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan have post-traumatic stress. Well, 7 to 8% of the general population has post-traumatic stress. So it is some, but it isn't everybody. And I think that's so important to bring out, Rich, that the vast majority of these people coming home were computer operators or aircraft loaders or supply people. They had non-combat jobs, and so they're just coming home and trying to get a job. So not everybody. There's no doubt that some are
right.
Damaged with traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, mental health, substance abuse issues. but it isn't everybody. And
now, what's the
the
most important thing facing them, or the biggest challenge?
Well, the biggest challenge is only 1% of the current population is served, so they don't. There's a military-civilian divide, and people in general, but particularly employers, don't realize the tremendous skills that these people have by virtue of their military service, and that's probably the biggest challenge that that these young people face, is that the hiring managers don't understand the tremendous leadership skills that many of these people bring to the workforce.
And tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing to help in this regard.
Well, I have taught. I created and taught a course on veterans issues at the Sanford School of Public Policy at Duke University. But I've also been privileged to help to represent the veteran community on the Kennedy Forum on Mental Health, which is former Congressman Patrick Kennedy's effort to erase the stigma of mental illness among the veterans in the general population and ensure mental health parity, that mental health be reimbursed by insurance companies in the same way that physical health is being reimbursed by insurance companies. And I've also done some work with veteran entrepreneurship. So I've had some various efforts in this regard.
Now, Dr. Dillon, I want to ask you a question. I know that you've been on in the past with Jimbo, and of course Jimbo Hannon, my predecessor, God rest his soul, was a veteran himself. But for people that are listening right now and they want to learn more about everything that you're doing, where do they go and how do they find out more?
They can go to my website. I have a website which is DillonConsult.com, DillonConsult.com, or they can go to my LinkedIn profile, and that's Paul A, middle initial A, Dillon, and either one, and I'd be glad to connect with anybody who has any questions.
Outstanding. Dr. Paul Dillon, adjunct instructor at the Sanford School of Public Policy at Duke University. He's a certified management consultant with 47 years of experience, and he's a former U.S. Army Reserve veteran, first lieutenant that was awarded 2 Bronze Star medals. Sir, I want to thank you for your service and thank you for being here this Veterans Day.
Thank you so much for having me on, Rich. I appreciate it.
You bet. God bless you. Folks, more to come straight ahead. Michael Reagan, Giordano, and more. Don't go anywhere.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My fellow Americans, next Friday, November 11th, we'll celebrate Veterans Day, the day America sets aside to honor millions of our finest heroes. They are the men and women who defend our country and preserve our peace and freedom. This Veterans Day offers more reason than ever to think about what these special people mean to America. Our most recent heroes, those still serving and those who have just come back from Beirut and Grenada, carried on with the same dedication and valor as their colleagues before them. If we remember that their dedicated service is in defense of our freedom, and if we understand that they put their lives on the line so we might enjoy justice and liberty, then their sacrifices will not be in vain. This is our obligation, and this has been the spirit of Veterans Day from the beginning. Veterans Day was originally called Armistice Day. It was first celebrated in 1919, the year we commemorated the armistice ending a war that was to have ended all wars. 2 years later, a solemn ceremony was held in Chalon-sur-Marne, a town in northeastern France. The ceremony would have deep meaning for America. The remains of 4 unknown American soldiers had been brought to the town square from 4 American military cemeteries in France. An American sergeant, Edward F. Younger, placed a bouquet of white roses on one of the caskets. The American unknown soldier of World War I had been designated. After transport across the Atlantic aboard Admiral Dewey's flagship, the cruiser Olympia, our nation laid this hero to rest in Arlington National Cemetery on Armistice Day, November 11, 1921. 62 years have now passed. Millions of people from every corner of the world have come to the tomb of the unknown soldier to pay their respects to America's fallen heroes.
And that, of course, the immortal Ronald Reagan, known as Ronaldus Magnus. And President Reagan was so profound on these things, so prescient and so eloquent at the same time. And to talk about Veterans Day and President Reagan's legacy and the Reagan Legacy Foundation is Michael Reagan, the eldest son of President Reagan. Michael Reagan, welcome back, sir.
It was great listening to that. It's like a history lesson, isn't it?
Absolutely. And most of his speeches, I find, are like that.
They really are. And he told stories. He was a storyteller in the family. And you really miss him on days like today because he really told stories. Told stories to me driving out to the ranch on Saturday mornings or sitting at Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever it might be. He was a storyteller. And I really miss the storyteller at this time of year as we celebrate this day and all those who were willing to give it all so we could celebrate Thanksgiving as we will in a couple of weeks and miss the stories of Thanksgiving and Christmas and what have you. So, and I think America misses him also.
Yeah, without question. I mean, listen, I think, one of my early forays into politics was reading some of the books on Reagan. And when you start reading like In His Own Hand, you start to see those handwritten notes and stuff like that, it becomes really evident that he was just a very, very different type of president, a different kind of man. And whether it was protecting America from the communist influence in Hollywood as president of the Screen Actors Guild, or becoming, being the Democrat governor of California, becoming a Republican, becoming president, it's a remarkable story that I witnessed as a little kid. And I was really, really little. My parents were big fans. And when we look at Veterans Day, I think that was something that he constantly talked about. He seemed like he could go on and on and on and just take it away when it came to speaking about veterans. Where do you think that love for the men and women in uniform came from?
From family. Dixon, Illinois. Mom, his dad, growing up in Dixon. And it just stayed with him. That Midwest kid who grew up and loved our country and what have you. And he never stopped loving the United States of America. And I think that today one of the problems we have is we forgot how to love America and love ourselves. There's so much vitriol that's out there and people pointing fingers at each other and forgetting, hey, wait a minute. Let's start loving ourselves again. Let's start loving America. I was telling a story today, and I've told this a few times. I think, Thanksgiving's right around the corner. People always talk about my dad, learning from my dad. Well, here's the thing you can learn. He has 2 children, Patty and Ron, who voted against him if they voted at all. Patty led a march on Washington, D.C. when he was president of the United States of America. He invited her into the Oval Office to say, what's your problem? But you know something? Even though he has a son who's an atheist who didn't support him, a daughter who did not support him, was a member of the Peace and Freedom Party, didn't vote for him. When we sat down for Thanksgiving dinner, they were at the table. They were at the table. And we spend too much time in this era that we live in, locking the doors and not having those people at the table that we disagree with. Instead of finding, ways to discuss things and politely and what have you, like my father did, they don't talk, they don't speak, they close the door. So I wonder how many families this year, as we're going to get ready for Thanksgiving, how many families will not have all the family at Thanksgiving dinner but they'll talk about Ronald Reagan incessantly and learn nothing.
Where do you think that civility comes from? Where was it just him being a loving father? Was it his wit and his humor spilling over to his parenting ability? What's the root of it?
I think back to the root of growing up. And, like you said, we didn't know we were poor till the government told us we were poor. And we had to work. We had to do things in our lives to put meals on the table. His father was an alcoholic. He was Irishman. He was an alcoholic. It's kind of what the nature of the beast and what have you. But again, it just growing up, his mother was a Sunday school teacher, taught him Sunday school. My dad became a Sunday school teacher. And if you really listen to him, Rich, you listen to his speeches, he spoke to us in parables. He spoke to us in parables, told those stories. And we remember the stories because he spoke to us in parables. When he spoke, you not only heard his speech, but you felt what he was saying. You understood what he was saying. Too many politicians today speak at you, yell at you, whatever it might be. But you don't remember what they said because you didn't feel what they said. With my dad, you felt every word that he said. That's why you can go back and listen to speeches he gave point to hot. Perfect, 1984. First president to visit Normandy on D-Day. Point to hot. Everybody remembers that speech. Everybody. And if you listen to it today, 40 years later, you will cry in the same spot that you cried the first time you heard it.
Michael Reagan, tell me, as the eldest son of President Reagan, what are some of your fondest memories of Veterans Day?
Well, my dad again, just in making sure that, as he would sing to us the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and Coast Guard song, riding out to the ranch, was important, was so important. And talking about America and talking about our military. Here's a man who couldn't. He was legally blind. Basically, he wore glasses or contact lenses. They couldn't go overseas, but he worked. He found a way to support our military, and did 300 training films when he was, here in California during the Second World War. 300 training films, and ended up retiring as a captain. Was offered to stay in. They give him a major. He didn't think that he deserved that rank because he couldn't go overseas and serve. So he just retired as a captain in the military. But 300. And I think about that today. We celebrate, this great day today of our great military who serves and have served. And we say, okay, what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do the next day? What are we going to do the next day? What are we going to do? And what happens is we do it one day and we walk away and say, well, that's it. It's over. There's things you can do. Like when you go to lunch or go to breakfast or dinner and you see a member of the military sit down with a friend or his family for dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it might be. Have you ever thought of just picking up their check and saying thank you? Ever thought about that? Or when you're on an airplane, you're flying business or first class, back and forth. Member of the military gets on a plane. You ever thought about getting up and handing them your seat and you take their seat and fly whatever distance it might be? There are little things you could do each and every day of the year to say thank you to our military. We could do it more than one day or 2 days a year. And maybe that's what they need. We have too many committing suicide in the world that we live in today. And maybe it's because they don't think that they're loved and cared for, and we're not wrapping, our arms around them. We need to do that. And that's what we try to do with the Reagan Legacy Foundation, the scholarship program that we have for the kids that serve on the USS Ronald Reagan. We give $1,000 scholarships for the kids on the ship. But something, families serve just as much as those kids on the ship. And so we provide $2,000 scholarships to family members at home that are waiting for their loved ones to return for being out 6, 8, 7, 8, 9 months, whatever it might be. Nobody else does that. The government doesn't give the family members at home anything to help them when they're trying to better their lives. And so we do that with the Reagan. And, of course, our brick project has been phenomenal with can you remember those who served in the Second World War, European theater? And we started that brick project at St. Mary Église, Normandy, France, back a few years ago. We were given land at St. Mary Église at their museum there that we've worked with so much, and said, we can start selling bricks and putting bricks in the ground with the names of loved ones who served in the Second World War European theater. And if you have a friend or a family member that does that, you can go online, ReaganLegacyFoundation.org, order a brick. It's $250, 100% tax deductible. We're a 501c3. If you don't know somebody, just send us a check for $250. We'll find the name. We'll put it on there, send you a picture of the brick when it's put in, and the story behind that person whose name is on that brick. So that's what I do, and I learned that from my dad.
Well, that's outstanding, the work of the Reagan Legacy Foundation. Make sure you check out ReaganLegacyFoundation.org and their initiatives. And we're going to come back. We're going to stick with Michael Reagan, the eldest son of President Ronald Reagan, our 40th president, as we're discussing Veterans Day and the anniversary of the 1984 landslide win of President Reagan and how that compares with the news of today. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The First World War did not end all wars. The assault on freedom and human dignity did not end. Our nation has laid to rest too many other heroes. From Guadalcanal and Omaha Beach to Mig Alley and Pork Chop Hill, from Khe Sanh and the Ashaw Valley to Beirut, America's best continue to give of themselves for us and for freedom-loving people everywhere.
That, of course, again, the 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, and doing what he does so well, just giving an amazing speech. Our guest is Michael Reagan from the Reagan Legacy Foundation, the eldest son of President Reagan. And Michael Reagan, I know that you guys do an amazing job at the Reagan Legacy Foundation and constantly supporting veterans. And when you look at the history, this 40 years since your dad won a landslide victory way back when, and we look at the victory that President Trump had just a few days back, what's your initial reaction to that?
My initial reaction was America got it right. Twice that I know of, actually more than that, but America got it right. They had to get it right this time. They had to get it right back in 1980 when my father was elected. Because the other side would just, I don't know where we'd be if indeed Harris had been elected President of the United States. America got it right. Democracy worked. People went out and they voted. They voted for the person they thought could carry the ball for the next 4 years, no matter what they threw at him. I don't know anybody else who would stand up to the onslaught that he stood up to for the last 9-10 years. And people talk to me, and I say, listen, if you ever go to New York and you do business or try to do business with a New York businessman, they're all Donald Trumps because that's how you do business in New York. I mean, if you want to build a building in New York, you have to really work with the unions. You have to work with all the people there. It's like I was talking to somebody one day, and they said, well, Donald Trump's a crook. I said, well, what do you do? Oh, I said, where do you live? He said, New Jersey. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a contractor. I said, well, then you're a crook, too. He said, yeah, I am. Well, just want to make sure everybody understands what's going on. And so you sit there and say, hey, where's America right now, and where do you want her to go? We're in turmoil. Like my father said, there have been 4 wars in his lifetime, none of which were started because America was too strong.
Right.
And it's when we're weak, we have problems. And unfortunately, the left, it played that card for so long. How long does the Cold War last? Appeasement does not work. It just
Michael Reagan,
it never has worked.
You said that America got it right, and I agree with you. But some on the left that you're talking about are saying that we got it wrong. And one of those is my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Listen to this.
What is going to be most important in this time is rejecting sectarianism and understanding that we have to be united as a people. Our main project is to unite the working class in this country against a fascist agenda, period.
So AOC says a fascist agenda is what Americans have elected, the working class of America, excuse me. AOC, I say it stands for all out crazy. What say you?
Well, what I say, it's very simple. You really are seeing the racist. And what party is a party of racism? Because who are they blaming? I mean, they're blaming blacks. They're blaming, Hispanics.
Yeah.
They're blaming women. They're blaming young people. Look at the people they're blaming. Like, hello. And again, they're pointing fingers and trying to affix blame. It can't be them. It's got to be, well, blacks never figured it out. Look what we've done for you. Or Hispanics didn't figure it out. Hispanics have come to the point saying, wait a minute, I came in here the right way. I went down and raised my hand, took the oath of being an American citizen, and you're allowing these people in who are taking my jobs away from me? Are you crazy?
Exactly. I agree with you. Are they crazy? Yet they want to blame Hispanics. They want to say guys like me are defectors, and we're abandoning our commitment to our fellow Latinos. Michael Reagan, stick with me. You're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Michael Reagan, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot at Reagan Legacy Foundation.org. It's really an honor to speak with you. I really enjoy it. I hate that we're out of time, but let everybody know where they can find you online.
At Reagan World, great place to yell at me. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't care. I put my op-ed pieces up there every week. I run 2 or 3 op-ed pieces a week. Plus, I comment quite a bit on my X account, so they can find me there. ReaganLegacyFoundation.org. Help a vet, get a brick, and help us stay. We care, and we love America, and we love our vets.
Outstanding. Michael Reagan, thank you so much. God bless you, sir. And Wayne in Idaho, thank you for your condolences, my brother. Big shout out to KBFI. Folks, we're coming right back. Hour number 2. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez. on all the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of our Monday night program. Our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I'm going to be getting to calls a little bit more frequently throughout the hour because I want to bring in open phones across America in every single hour, not just the third hour. And I want to get into a couple of things. Obviously, big news today. We have several appointments and expected appointments that have been announced by President-elect Trump, the 47th president-elect. And we have a report on some of those names that I want to share with you. Listen to this.
Trump announced former ICE Director Tom Homan will be his border czar.
I'm honored the president asked me to come back.
Homan appeared on Fox and Friends this morning.
Public safety threats and national security threats will be the priority.
Trump has tapped New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik to serve as ambassador to the United Nations. Stefanik made national headlines last year, questioning university presidents during hearings on anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes.
Other high-level staffing discussions are still underway.
Whatever role I hold going forward, it's going to be advanced. It's going to be advancing the positions that President Trump has articulated that the American people overwhelmingly supported.
President-elect Trump is also trying to exert influence over Congress and the next Senate Majority Leader. In a post directed at the 3 Republican contenders, he wrote whoever wins should allow him to make recess appointments to his cabinet that don't require Senate approval. He also said the Senate shouldn't approve any judges until he takes office.
So that, again, report from CBS News. Now, Trump not only appointing Senator Marco Rubio to be Secretary of State pending Senate confirmation, but Congressman Mike Walz as National Security Advisor, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, the Republican Conference Chair, as the United States Ambassador to the United Nations. Of course, as you just heard, former ICE Director Tom Homan as the border czar. Stephen Miller, who is going to now be Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. This is exciting stuff, very exciting stuff. And I expect Trump to continue cranking out more names as time goes on. Oh, Kash Patel as potential in the running is what I read, in the running for National Security Advisor. Very exciting times. I think very competent people. Kash Patel, of course, having served as Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense and as National Security Advisor to the House Intelligence Committee. Somebody who knows exactly what's going on. Now, that's the story on President Trump. Of course, President Biden today was in rare form giving a speech that was somewhat coherent. And Joe El Baboso Biden was making well wishes to families at Arlington Cemetery for Veterans Day. Listen to this.
To all those with a loved one still missing or unaccounted for, to all Americans grieving the loss of a loved one who wore the uniform, Jill and I want you to know we see you, we thank you, and we'll never stop working to meet our sacred obligation to you and your family.
Again, Joe El Baboso Biden giving a Veterans Day speech. And I didn't hear much from Vice President Harris, but some of her advisors were out there saying some interesting things. I'm going to get to that in a little bit because I think it's a pretty interesting statement that they made. Man, there's really a lot of interesting things. Plus, the reaction from so many of these left-wing loonies. Just very, very exciting stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit later this hour and, of course, in the next hour as well. And we're going to be getting to your calls this hour and next hour because open phones across America will be all 3 hours every single night. So I want to just take a moment again and if you're just joining the program, acknowledge my brother, Robert Valdez, United States Marine Corps. He passed away last year on November 8th. So it's been a year and 3 days this year. And he was a Marine, and, yesterday was the Marine Corps birthday. And so it was a somewhat emotional, sentimental time in my family as we, remembered Bobby's life, and then the Marine Corps birthday, and then again, Veterans Day today. And I realized that's not unique to me. There are many families across America who have family members that have served, who have family members that have lived a good life, and have family members that have passed away. But I think it's important on Veterans Day to just take that moment to acknowledge them. So I want to make sure that we do that. And I wanted to play a clip that we have from President Reagan. It's a short clip. We played a little bit of a different clip earlier, and I want to play somewhat of, the continuation of that clip for you here. Listen to this.
Yesterday, I had the opportunity to visit Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I went there to pay tribute to the many who gave their last full measure of their devotion. They kept faith with us, and indeed they were heroes. Where do we get such brave young Americans? And where do we get those that came to their aid? The Marines in Beirut, who witnessed an unspeakable tragedy and returned to their posts with the same dedication and even greater resolve. The air crews working around the clock, the Army doctors performing medical miracles, and the sailors helping in countless ways. Such men and women can only come from a nation that remains true to the ideals of our founding fathers. I also met with families and friends of those who lost their lives. I share their sorrow, and they have my prayers as I know they have yours. These brave men protected our heritage of liberty. We must carry on. I believe we can and will. The spirit and patriotism that made America great is alive and well.
Reagan was just, I think, unmatched, right, when it came to making speeches and having the foresight and the prescience that we need. And he's a real national treasure. I'm grateful to have clips of his to play. And just want you to chew on that for a second. When we come back, Professor Nick Giordano.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My hands across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Familia, we continue our discussion. And today, President Trump, Veterans Day, released some great messages on that, as well as his plans for education. And he's got a great clip. I can't play all of it for you because it was kind of robust and really in-depth, but I'm going to play a good chunk of it for you. Listen to this.
But instead of being at the top of the list, we are literally right smack, guess what, at the bottom. Rather than indoctrinating young people with inappropriate racial, sexual, and political material, which is what we're doing now, our schools must be totally refocused to prepare our children to succeed in the world of work and in life and the world of keeping our country strong so they can grow up to be happy, prosperous, and independent citizens. We owe our children great schools that lead to great jobs and leads to an even greater country that we're living in right now. Right now, we're living in a failing nation because of Joe Biden and these people running it. They're Marxists, they're communists. What they're doing to our country is incredible, but we'll take care of that for our children. Here are 10 key ideas that will power our movement for great schools. First, we will respect the right of parents to control the education of their children. Second, we will empower parents and local school board to hire and reward great principals and teachers, and also to fire the poor ones, the one whose performance is unsatisfactory. They will be fired. Like on The Apprentice, you're fired. Third, we will ensure our classrooms are focused not on political indoctrination, but on teaching the knowledge and skills needed to succeed. Reading, writing, math, science, arithmetic, and other truly useful subjects. Fourth, we will teach students to love their country, not to hate their country like they're taught right now. Fifth, we will support bringing back prayer to our schools. Sixth, we will achieve schools that are safe, secure, and drug-free, with immediate expulsion for any student who harms a teacher or another student. Seventh, we will give all parents the right to choose another school for their children if they want. It's called school choice. Eighth, we will ensure students have access to project-based learning experiences inside the classroom to help train them for meaningful work outside the classroom. Ninth, we will strive to give all students access to internships and work experiences that can set them on a path to their first job. They're going to be very, very successful. I want them to be more successful than Trump. Let them go out and be more successful. I will be the happiest person in the world. But we want our children to have a great life and be successful. And 10th, we will ensure that all schools provide excellent jobs and career counseling so that high school and college students can get a head start on jobs and careers best suited to their God-given talents. This is how we will ensure a great education for every American child.
This is President Trump's 10-step plan, along with announcing how he wants to eliminate the Department of Education. Now, you know who else wanted to eliminate the Department of Education? President Ronald Reagan. And it wasn't something that came to fruition. In my lifetime, I think the only department I've seen change was the addition of the Department of Homeland Security by George W. Bush. So I hope that this is something that can actually happen. I believe it's something that can, especially from a president who's not trying to get reelected. So I want to talk about education in America, the response of liberal professors to the Trump victory, and so much more with our guest, Professor Nick Giordano. He's professor of political science at Suffolk Community College, host of the PAS Report podcast, and the education fellow over at Campus Reform. Professor Nick Giordano, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Rich. And if they're listening to that, I think Trump visits campusreform.org. That's for sure.
Good. Seems like he's following some of your policy recommendations. Great minds think alike. I love to hear that. What's your additional reaction to what you heard?
Well, I think a lot of it is common sense, right? I think parents should be the ones that are in charge of their child's education. Parents should have a say in the education system, and parents should have a choice. If a school is failing, they should have the choice to pull that kid out of that school and send them either to a neighboring public school district or a private school, parochial school. I think when it comes to what he said about the standards in the United States, the United States spends $1.4 trillion a year on education, yet we rank 24th. This should be unacceptable. We are the global superpower of the world, and the fact that we rank 24th is an embarrassment. And as we've seen the decline in our education system, notice it directly correlates with the decline of our nation. So I think that he hit on something when he said that we have to get back to teaching the core materials. The anti-Americanism that's been festering in the public education system and the higher education system. We've been reporting on that at Campus Reform for years, that you have professors that are indoctrinating students to despise this country, where we now see open hostility towards the United States with the pro-Hamas protests that took over college campuses at the end of last semester and into this semester. So a lot of the things he's touching on are things that conservatives have been saying for years, and it's time that we do take action. We need a robust civics program that's really going to educate students on the founding of this country, the roles and responsibilities of our institutions, but also their role within the system to improve our country, to make them productive citizens that provide value to their communities. If we could do all that, we could turn the ship around.
Now, Professor Nick Giordano, I agree with you. I think that's what needs to be done.
I'm shocked.
Do you think that he's going to have the bandwidth to pull it off?
I think for some of it, he certainly will. So let's look at the largest thing, the closure of the Department of Education. That's going to be the most challenging. As everyone knows, when a new government bureaucracy forms, it is extraordinarily difficult to dismantle it, as you rightly pointed out. over the course of our lifetimes, the only thing we've seen is actually an expansion of the bureaucracy with the Department of Homeland Security. And whenever government programs get instituted, well, it's very difficult to claw them back once Americans have become used to them. So it's going to be difficult to dismantle the Department of Education, but it doesn't mean that you can't reform it, you can't downsize it, you can't change its focus. I mean, let's be honest here. Grant funding is what talks, and that's what the Department of Education does. It provides grants. So over the last 4 years under the Biden administration, we've seen the Department of Education, as well as other government agencies, provide institutions from K through 12 and higher education an enormous. We're talking tens of millions of dollars in funding to promote DEI and critical race theory. Well, this is something that could easily be changed. We could cut off the grant funding so that DEI is no longer being promoted, and the president and his staff can encourage pro-American curriculums. Do away with the 1619 project that was built on a false premise that was debunked by both scholars on the right and the left, and institute one that teaches the totality of American history, both the good and the bad, where we started and how far we've come. So there are things that can be reformed at the Department of Education. It certainly can be downsized, and you can get rid of the ideological bureaucrats that are running the agency right now.
Do you remember the 1776 project?
I do.
Or the commission that Trump proposed prior to leaving office? I thought it was fantastic. It talked about a lot of what you just talked about. Do you think there'll be an expansion of that?
I do. I see a revival of the 1776 project. I see that commission's, I do believe it will be revived. And I do believe that the president is going to push the Department of Education to push the K through 12 system in that direction. Let's teach real American history about what the Founding Fathers were all about. You ask any student today, and they'll tell you that our Founding Fathers were nothing more than a bunch of rich old white men that had slaves. Well, the truth is that most of the Founding Fathers actually didn't have slaves. There were many that did, but most did not, especially those that attended the Constitutional Convention. And slavery was actually heavily debated at the Constitutional Convention. You had Governor Morris give a speech on the floor of the convention called The Sins of Slavery, and most students never even heard of Governor Morris. So I think we can get the 1760 project back up and running, and I think it'll be a good thing.
Outstanding. Professor Nick Giordano, stick with me. We're coming right back. I want to get your thought and your take on the political process right now with Trump appointing people to his administration. Don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back with Professor Nick Giordano.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And we're going to have some discussion on Trump's appointments. But first, I want to play a quick clip of one of Kamala Harris's advisors. And you won't believe what he said. His name's Jamal Simmons. He was on CNN yesterday, and he said that Biden should resign immediately so that Kamala can be the first woman president before Trump takes over, and so that she doesn't have to certify his election because, in fact, it was her that lost to him. Listen to this.
Joe Biden's been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days. He just said
Joe Biden would be a phenomenal president. There's already something wrong with this guy. Go ahead.
Make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
Whoa.
It would absolve her from being able to from having to oversee the January 6th transition, right, of her own defeat. And it would make sure that it would dominate the news at a point where Democrats have to learn drama And transparency and doing things that the public want to see is the time. This is the moment for us to change the entire perspective.
Change your perspective. This guy needs to wake up and drink some cafecito. Nick Giordano, what say you?
I say that is completely unrealistic. It's not going to happen. Joe Biden's been in for 3 years and 3 quarters, so he's going to finish out the last quarter of his term. The idea that he would step down at this point is laughable. But I'll tell you what, if he did, then, all the Trump 47 gear is going to have to change to Trump 48. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. And it's actually dangerous that he's proposing that. Understand that America is actually at its most vulnerable point during the transition of power. So as of right now, we're at a vulnerable point. And if he stepped down and Kamala Harris became president, it would make us even more vulnerable. So it's dangerous as well on the international stage.
I agree with that. But I think the whole thing is insanity. If Biden was planning on stepping down, don't you think he would have done that already and helped her win as president, the sitting president? Obviously, he's not going to do it. This guy's off his rocker, this Jamal Simmons. Do you think this guy gets another job?
Well, I think a lot of people from that side of the political spectrum have lost their minds since the election. And clearly it's on display each and every day. And the media is going to have to figure something out, right? I mean, obviously they've been thoroughly discredited over the last decade, but over the last year, they have gotten they've done enormous damage to themselves over and over again. They conspired to cover up Joe Biden's cognitive decline. They constantly have put on ideologues where they've been wrong. And you have these ratings that are just plummeting. I mean, MSNBC's ratings have been plummeting since election night. Once, Trump won, people are tuning it out and turning those stations off because those networks were saying, pretty much Kamala's going to win. It's her election to lose, and she's got it. And they're disappointed, those viewers, time and time again. So it's time that they turn off that news and start listening more to Rich Valdez.
I love that. Appreciate that, brother. And you know what? I do think they're out of their minds. Just as a point of personal privilege here, somebody sent me a tweet that I think I might have retweeted earlier today. It's absolutely hysterical. It's got like circus music playing in the background, and it's like a montage, a 9-minute montage of reactions from Jen Psaki and what's the lady with the short hair from MSNBC?
Rachel Maddow.
Yeah, and they're just and
they're getting more and more depressed throughout the night.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. I watched it twice, and I was like, I'm bookmarking this. I'm going to watch it every day. I was reliving election night so I could gloat by myself. But it was absolutely precious. If I could, I would play it here, but it's just too long of a clip. But it's great to see how they're falling apart because I don't think, and I guess maybe they could try to make the argument, say, oh, the MAGA people fell apart after Trump's loss. They went and stormed the Capitol. I think we all know that's not necessarily totally factually accurate, right? They were upset and they went to the Capitol and they had a peaceful rally. And then there was, I would say some law enforcement participation and malfeasance that made things really, really bad. But with respect to these people, I see like an on-air breaking down of their psyche, if that's fair to say. What do you think? Am I off my rocker, or do you think I'm right? What do you think?
Well, I think that the media lacks any ability to do any self-reflection whatsoever to try and understand people. It's if you listen to them, one, they're doing the circular firing squad and shooting each other, but more importantly, they're saying it wasn't Harris that lost the race. It's because the American people are racist. You now have Joe Scarborough and Al Sharpton talking about how black men hate black women and how black men are racist. You have Hispanic men being labeled as misogynistic and racist towards blacks. And that's what the Democrat identity politics does. It takes all these groups and then they all start to turn on each other and they put them against each other. That's why the whole diversity, equity, inclusion, and political identity nonsense is so destructive to our society. And look, the election showed people rejected political identity. They don't want to be lumped into groups. They understand that despite America's flaws, despite our past sins, that we are a great nation, that we offer freedom and opportunity more so than any other nation on this planet, and that the majority of American people are just good and decent people. They want to be able to work for a living. They want to be able to make money, support their families, and they want to be left alone from government. That's what this election showed.
I agree with that. And I think not only do they want to be left alone from government, I think they're tired of being cast the way they've been cast. But yet AOC says that the working class voted for authoritarianism. Bernie Sanders says that people are angry, yet we have, let me see, I don't want to misquote this.
Bernie said that the Democrats abandoned the working class and that they don't stand for the working class anymore. And then it was interesting because then Nancy Pelosi came out and totally savaged Bernie Sanders, even though Bernie Sanders is right. I mean, if we're looking at the demographics that support the Democratic Party today, it is more the upper echelon of society. It is the elite. It is the college educated, the PhDs, those making over $250,000 a year, $300,000 a year. If you look at the donations, it's mostly from many of the big media and the big CEOs. And so if you look at it, we've seen this party reversal going on for the last decade, and it's really interesting to watch how the roles have reversed. Remember, it was the Republicans that were supposed to be the uptight ones, with their country clubs and their khakis and sweater vests. And the Democrats were supposed to be the ones that fought against the system and that you let loose and you could laugh. Well, now the Democrats, the new Democrat Party, have made the conservatives the fun ones. I mean, who would have thought that would have happened?
Yeah. And what I was saying was the number I didn't want to misquote. Trump won, I think it was 2,619 of 3,000 counties in America. Kamala Harris won 525. That's why the map looks so red and it doesn't look very blue. So to say that the working class abandoned, the Democrats or vice versa, I think is probably accurate. The working class went with Trump, and the numbers are just all there to actually support it and to prove it. And
if you look at that map, it's Democrats are the coastal elites, right? They're going to be a regional political party in the coastal elites. That's what the map shows, that, everything between the coastal elites is all red.
Well put. Stand by right there, Professor Nick Giordano, coming right back with you. I want to talk about these appointments, Tom Homan and the rest of them. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I love your show, everything you do. So what an honor, really, to join you and your listeners tonight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And again, the announcement of several members of the Trump administration coming out today with, let's see, in addition to the GOP keeping control of the House, you've got Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller has been appointed as Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy in the White House. You've got Elise Stefanik, Congresswoman from New York, Republican Conference Chair, being selected to be the choice for UN ambassador or U.S. ambassador to the UN. You've got Congressman Mike Walls to be the National Security Advisor in the White House. Secretary of State is going to be going to, pending Senate approval, to Senator Marco Rubio. And you've got former ICE Director Tom Homan being selected to be the border czar. And Homan was on 60 Minutes and was asked a question And his answer was so savage, and it's breaking the internet. Listen to this.
What price do you put on national security?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
That is probably the most commonsensical response ever heard, because it was a stupid question. You know, they say there is no stupid question, just stupid people that ask them. And I probably agree with that. Nick Giordano, welcome back. Professor Nick Giordano from the PAS Report podcast. And I want to know, what do you think of, A, of his response here, and B, the appointment overall?
Well, supposedly the 60 Minutes interview, they did a number of edits on that interview.
No way, not 60 Minutes, not CBS News.
Yeah, you know, they have this habit, of always trying to make people look bad. But what Tom Homan was saying, and then he did follow up with that, was that if you are illegally here in the United States and you are deported, you are removed from the United States. Well, if you're a family unit, the entire family unit gets removed. And this is part of the process. Now, this is where, the second something goes wrong, the Democrats and the media are going to be out there with their cameras and posting it all over. But the Trump administration, or the President-elect's administration, has made clear that the first targets are going to be criminal illegal aliens that have committed crimes against Americans. That will be their focus at first, and then they'll broaden it out to those that came over the last 4 years. So it's going to be interesting to see how they work this out, because logistically it's a difficult feat. It's not actually easy to do. So I'm interested to see how it works.
Me too. Now, what do you think the reaction is going to be from Washington? Do you think that Trump is going to face some backlash from Republican senators? Will there be some new Mitt Romneys out there? Or do you think everybody's going to play ball?
Well, here's the thing. As of right now, everyone's going to play ball because of the way the election victory turned out, that it, dominated the Electoral College, won the popular vote, took the Senate and the House. I think a lot of people are going to play ball, especially given that the poll numbers, for the first time, the majority of Americans actually support deportations. But again, the second it hits a snafu and the optics aren't there, because optics are very important in politics. And, remember, the kids in cages, even though they were showing pictures from when President Obama was in office and the kids were in cages, the optics do matter. So how it's done is going to be the most difficult task, making sure that it's clean, it's efficient, that there's no drama, and that the media can't use one little clip and take it out of context, and then the public opinion changes against deportation.
Do you think that's going to change? The last survey I saw was from, I'm going to say maybe around September or early October, and showed, I think, 58% of the public was in favor of mass deportation. Have you heard anything different?
No, that number's not going to change. But let's say a video comes out of a father being taken out of a home and the kids are screaming and crying, then you'll see those numbers shift. And that's what the Trump administration has to prevent, because Americans, one, we're generally good and decent human beings, and we're sympathetic, we understand that, and we are empathetic as well. So I think that you have to prevent those optics from going out, because if that's what this becomes the face of, then you will see the numbers switch.
Now, my thinking here is politicians, and I don't think Trump is exempt from that, oftentimes promise what they want to do, and they'll do everything they can do within their power, but there's also things that are outside of their power where they rely on other people to get things done. I think Trump's going to make good on his promises, but I think that they're going to have their hands pretty full in just emptying out the migrant facilities. I'm just thinking Floyd Bennett Field has a facility in New York City, the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. These are massive facilities, I think, that are large, that there's, 1,000 people in these things. So to deport just that 1,000 people, I think, is going to require a lot. Because I saw the police try to execute a search warrant in there, and it got violent quickly. So I know they're ultimately going to win, and they can they can overcome. But it's going to be challenging because if the cameras are rolling and people are saying, oh, my gosh, you're going to pepperball these people, you're going to go in there and treat them like it's a riot, well, it may actually become a riot. How do you think the administration is going to navigate that politically?
I don't envision it going down that way. So what I think they're first going to do is target criminal aliens where they know where they are, that they could easily get, and there's plenty of them. And that's going to be the main focus at the beginning. Then he's going to work, if you look at Mayor Adams, and Mayor Adams has been critical of the Biden administration over the last few years, he's going to look in red states and to Mayor Adams to help him out, to be the one to help go in and clear some of these fields. But really, you don't even have to do that. I mean, mainly, you crack down on employers first. You cut off the benefits. If you begin to cut off the benefits and the things that attract, the magnets that attract all these people to come to the United States, well, sooner or later, they're going to self-deport. If they don't have the ability to work and they don't have the ability to collect the benefits that they've been collecting, and the money stops flowing to the hotels, well, sooner or later, they will leave on their own. And I think that's going to be the plan, because if you try and round up all these people, I think you're right. You could have that incident of a riot breaking out, but also it costs a lot of money. You need the logistics to be able to do it. You have to have the immigration judges, because every single person that is facing removal proceedings has a right to be heard by a judge.
Well, I want to talk about that when we come back. I got to pause right here. Nick Giordano, stick with me. Folks, we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with our guest, Professor Nick Giordano. And Professor Nick Giordano, let everybody know where they can find you.
Everyone could go to campusreform.org and pasreport.com, find out all the great work we're doing.
Outstanding, brother. Well, I want to thank you for being here. Can't wait to have another chat with you real soon as the news unfolds, and it's coming out pretty quick. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more of that in the days to come. Godspeed, brother.
Oh, always a pleasure to talk to you, Rich.
You bet, man. And, folks, let's see. With seconds to go on the clock, let's go to Wayne, calling us from Idaho, KBFI. Go for it.
Seconds, I don't think we'll do this, Richard, but I appreciate the time. I want to give my homage out to all the military families out there who have suffered great loss on this.
Amen.
Because
I appreciate that, Wayne. The music means that we do have to go, but you're right. It doesn't give it the credence that it's due, but it is a noteworthy and honorable thing to do, and I appreciate it on this Veterans Day. Really do, very deeply. Folks, coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the third hour of our Monday night program. Our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And Man, so much to talk about. What a busy Monday in the news today. Lots of news, announcements from President Trump of new appointments to his administration. The Republicans have kept control of the House of Representatives. And what else do we have here? There was a bunch of news. There was a plane that was diverted from landing in Port-au-Prince, Haiti to the Dominican Republic, a Spirit Airlines flight, because it was getting shot at. And that's something. So, again, just a recap on some of these things. Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, has been tapped by the Trump team to be his nominee for Secretary of State. You've got Congressman Mike Walls being tapped for National Security Advisor. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has been tapped to be the United States Ambassador to the United Nations. Former ICE Director Tom Homan has been tapped to become the border czar. And Stephen Miller, former senior advisor to the president, is now Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy in the White House. And Kash Patel, our very own Kash Patel, has been on here a number of times. Good guy, friend of the program. Kash Patel is being floated as CIA director. So as they continue to put the dream team together for El Trompito's 47th run as president, not 47th run, I should say, his term as the 47th president, his second run at the presidency. There's a lot to discuss. I mean, and a lot more to come, right? There's a lot of people he can announce, and it's very, very interesting. Now, let me see. There's a story here. Oh, wow, this is a good story. Listen to this one. I didn't see this earlier. One of Obama's speechwriters is saying that there was some internal polling that had Trump winning over 400 electoral college votes versus Biden. Oh, I can't help but laugh. So then the Democrats must be really happy that Harris got, enough to cut into Trump only getting 312 electoral college votes. That's pretty interesting. No doubt that that's funny. Anyway, that's part of what's going on. And there's a couple of clips I want to play for you. Of course, earlier I played this. I'm going to play it again, though, just because I think it's crazy. A guy named Jamal Simmons, he's a Harris advisor. He was on CNN yesterday, and you've heard this before. I'm going to play it again just because it has to be played. Everybody has to hear it. And if this is your first time, you're driving home from work, going to work, coming home from work, whatever the case may be, in the middle of your shift, while you're live at listening to the radio at night, I want you to hear this.
Joe Biden's been a phenomenal president. He's lived up to so many of the promises he's made. There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days, make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
Whoa.
It would absolve her from being able to from having to oversee the January 6th transition, right, of her own defeat. And it would make sure that it would dominate the news at a point where Democrats have to learn drama and transparency and doing things that the public want to see is the time. This is the moment for us to change the entire perspective.
Now, right there at the end, that was Dana Bash chiming in saying, this is stuff we've only heard of on Twitter that you're now saying on television. And she was trying to say, excuse me, sir, this is the stuff of crazy people. What are you talking about? And of course, she's right. And I don't think I've ever agreed with Dana Bash in my life. But the reality is, people who are desperate and thinking emotionally, and this happens on both sides of the aisle, I must say, they will believe absolutely anything without thinking about it politically. Politically speaking, if Joe Biden had any intention of resigning the presidency, he would have done it and helped Harris already. There's not a chance that he was going to do it. In my opinion, there's not a chance. He will die in office before giving her the satisfaction of ever serving a day as acting president now that she's put a fork in him, right? I mean, come on. This guy said, I'm running for president. They ain't going to push me out. Him and the pressure, right? And then they came and said, oh, and they did something to him. And he came out on Twitter and said, I'm not running for president. I'm going with Kamala Harris. I mean, the whole thing is fishy. Then he puts on a Trump hat. I know he's confused. I know he's dazed. I know he's Joe El Baboso Biden. But Kamala Harris, she's earned that name, how bad she is. And she is. she's done some bad things to Joe Barbosa Biden. So he doesn't like her, and he's not going to give her any satisfaction. None at all, especially not the end of term commutations and pardons and things of that nature. Not at all. He's not going to give that to her to have a freebie. She already got a freebie by getting to run for president when she wasn't even planning on running for president. So, excuse me. So, yeah, forget about it. As they say in Jersey, forget about it. Anyway, that's that one. Now, I want to get to your calls. We're going to be doing a lot more of open phones across America. We're going to integrate it into every hour of the show so that we get through this a lot quicker, because news is breaking quickly, and I want to be able to get your reactions to absolutely everything. So probably the last segment of every hour, we will be taking your calls live, 833-482-5337. But I do want to get some of your calls here. Let me see. Where do we go? Of course, on this Veterans Day, we got a lot of people chiming in to talk about veterans. And I want to go to Otis, who's calling us from Morgantown, Kentucky on WK. I don't know. What is that station there? Somebody help me out here. WKTC, KC. I need to get it right. There we go. Thank you, Otis. I appreciate it. There was a typo on the screen. I hate it when that happens. It miscredits our wonderful affiliates. Otis, go for it.
Yes, well, thank you, Rich, for taking my call, and thank you for your brother's service, and my father and all veterans.
Thank you.
World War
Amen.
II and everything.
Likewise.
Been a great week, hasn't it, Rich?
Oh, glorious, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Carl Screener, one of the best men I ever met in my life. I met him in 1995. His name was Fred Shazer. He's from Vineland, New Jersey. He was a World War II and Korean War veteran, and sometime right after the Korean War, he became all-Army pistol champion for about 6-8 years, competed in the Olympics, Panama Games, had all kinds of awards like that, everything. And be quick, sometime in the mid-60s there, his wife died, and then 4 or 5 years later, about 1969 or 70, our local Ford dealer went up to New Jersey, and Fred was working at a training place like for dealers all over the country or something like that, and took his sister along, who was a widow too, and they met up there and moved back to here in Morgantown in the early 70s or so.
Yep.
And he finished up till he retired at TVA and such, and in 95, like I said, I met him, and within 2 years, him and I and 5 or 6 others were in a gospel group and done a little bluegrass and country and went around nursing homes, veterans homes, and he was an incredible gentleman.
That's a wonderful story, Otis, and I appreciate it. And I didn't know you did a little bluegrass, but that's really cool that you did. Kudos to him, to Fred, and to you, and for your service and your father's service to the country. I really appreciate it. And God bless you for that. I think that's a wonderful thing. And, you know, what's interesting, you mentioned Vineland, New Jersey. Vineland, New Jersey today is home to the largest Puerto Rican community in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. It sure is. Otis in Kentucky on WKCT. Get it right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Let's see. Where do we go from here? With a couple of minutes before the break, I want to go to, let's see, where are we? Mark, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Go right ahead.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. I think it's my second time caller. Hey.
Oh, thank you.
I watched the after the election, and this is what I got. I got the vampires cast no reflection. 85 negative coverage on Trump, 90% on positive on Kamala. The people need to change their news stations or where they get their news, because the truth is the truth, and that's the way it goes. Now, I don't want to spend 4 years of this, trying to ask Trump questions and the media just going rah, 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 rah. What I'd like to see is a little decorum set. If they can't say thank you, Mr. President, and ask the question, because remember, the blue wagon or the left side always like, what kind of ice cream you want, Joe?
Right.
They're always kind one way and not the other. So this is what I want to see. I want to see decorum from them, and I want them to treat what they say, the most powerful man in the world, with a little dignity and respect. And I would like to see that. So if you could share this or get this out there, that's one thing we'd like to see.
Well,
now,
you know, Mark, you just shared it with a lot of America, with I think a little bit more than 6 million listeners that we have, and I'm grateful for it, because I think you're right. I think, you know, Trump is showing a little bit more restraint. I think he's he's really saying, you know what, this is it. I'm here. You got to deal with me, and hopefully they'll see it the same way. And he's not attacking them. I think he's been very fair with them, and I hope that they'll be fair with him. And honestly, I don't know that they're going to have much of a choice, because now, you know, last time it was like, oh, it was a fluke, right? 2016, they thought it was a fluke. Then in 2020, they thought, oh, these people are crazy. Oh, it's split down the middle. I think they realize now the country's not split down the middle. And you're seeing these people have meltdowns on television on a regular basis. I'm seeing clip after clip coming from MSNBC and CNN, where they are constantly talking about, you know, why this happened, how it happened, trying to analyze and dissect and say that, you know, Hispanic men are racist and misogynist, to say that black men are racist and misogynist. It's self-loathing that's gotten to us. The white supremacy's gotten into all of our heads, yada, 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 yada. The list goes on. But I think the reality is they know, and many of them are becoming very soberly aware, that most Americans, and like the numbers I showed you before, 2,519 counties of, you know, 3,000 some odd counties, to her 525 counties. That's a lot of counties that went for Trump. The vast majority. And that's why the map is so red. And I think they're realizing that, and they're saying, man, other than a whole lot of people in a few big blue cities, we're outnumbered. And I've been honest with you guys. I felt like that for a while. I thought, you know, us red hat wearing MAGA people are the minority. I'm realizing that maybe not everybody's wearing the red hat, and they may not call themselves MAGA people, but they love America, and they want to make America first, and they want to make America great again. Mark, thanks for your call from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on America's oldest radio station, KDKA. And don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to it.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The voice of Jimbo Hannon. Of course, if you want to call us, you can give us a call, 866-505-4626. That's our legacy line. And, you know, tomorrow marks the second year anniversary of the passing of Jimbo. And we'll be spending some time on that tonight. Not much time on it tonight because it hasn't occurred yet. But I do want to go to one caller who has special privilege here, and that is Gil from Manila, Philippines. Gil, go right ahead, sir.
Yes, so thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for being a veteran, and thank you for your service, sir.
Well, I didn't do very much. I wasn't like Jim. I was never deployed to Vietnam, even though I was a Vietnamese linguist. They put me to work in another place. We both served in military intelligence, and we served almost to the exact day of our enlistments from September of 1966 to September of 1970 is when we both separated. I was in Massachusetts. He was in Washington at the time. We subsequently became personal friends on a personal level. But he was a great treasure, a treasure to this medium. And he, of course, just before his passing, was inducted into the Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And just wanted to mention that.
Of course.
But
Go ahead.
And one last thing, maybe someday you'll let me tell my Kamala Harris joke. But
well, maybe you could call tomorrow, and in honor of Jimbo, and we'll do it then. Gil in Manila, Philippines. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. You are a patriot and a good man, and I really appreciate you calling. Let us continue. I want to go to Joe calling us from Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri on KRMS. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Rich, for taking my call, especially after
Pleasure.
his, because I, like him, go way, way back on this show. So shout out, and I agree with you. Thank you for your service. But I have two things to say. First of all, thank you for bringing up the fact that if Joe Biden had really wanted her to win, he would have just stepped down from office. Because I've been saying that to my friends, and everybody's like, no. So I was thrilled to hear you say that tonight. I love it when I'm validated. And secondly, technically, if my memory serves me correct, and I do have an old dinosaur brain, so it might not be on point, but it seemed to me that at some point, Joe Biden had a surgical procedure that meant he had to go under, and in that moment, she technically, for all intents and purposes, did hold the presidency for a brief amount of time, but she held it. I could be mistaken about that.
You may be right. I don't know. I do know he had open brain surgery a couple of times, but that was before he was president. And I guess when he was in the hospital, they said that he did not transfer any power. But I don't know if that's accurate or not. As far as I know, I don't remember anything either. But we'll look into it and we'll find out. Joe from Lake of the Ozarks, thank you for your call. Thank you for your listenership and for sticking with me. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you. And folks, we're going to continue with Open Phones Across America into the next half hour. Oh, and there we go. There's the music. So getting to your calls, we got calls from all over: Idaho, Indiana, Arizona, Montana, New York, Arkansas, Canada, and more coming in. I see the lights are flashing, and there's two open lines. So here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Open Phones Across America with me, Rich Valdez. Coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Even the parents who reached out to us about this were telling me that this is a very popular teacher, has been here for a long time. As far as anyone knows, has never had an issue like this until students in a class got this in their cell phones. Listen.
I'm pissed. People voted for freaking rapists. I'm pissed off.
It's the voice of a Chino High teacher reacting to a student walking into his class wearing a Trump hat the day after the election.
Turn it off and go back to your freaking seat now. Go. Take the. Can you send security up, please? That boy who has a Trump hat on, and I'm not going to tolerate it today. Bye-bye.
Unfortunately, this video is real.
The president of the Chino Valley Unified School Board of Education, which Chino High is part of, says they are looking into this.
That, of course, a report from Fox 11's Christina, help me out here, Gonzalez, thank you. And the most alarming thing there is the anger. It sounds like the teacher's chasing this kid around. Now, listen, I'm going to say, for the sake of fairness, when I was in high school, I was not allowed to wear a hat in the school because, as I was told, it was a think it was a federal law. If the United States flag hangs outside of a public building, you're not allowed to wear a hat inside, and you have to uncover. So I don't know if that's going to be the justification here, but just because somebody's wearing a hat doesn't mean that you get to chase them around. Can you get security? I mean, that's kind of out of hand for sure. I can't wait to see how that works out. It's almost like the FEMA people skipping over the houses that had Trump signs. I mean, just the anti-Trump bias is real. And the worst part is this anti-Trump bias is against you and me, the American people, not against Trump himself anymore. Anyway, let's get to some calls. Like I always say, if you disagree, you come to the front of the line. Let's go to Ulysses, Clifton Park, New York, WGDJ. Go for it.
How you doing, sir? How have you been?
Good. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment about the professor.
Yes, Professor Nick Giordano.
Oh, yes, sir. I just kind of wanted to vehemently disagree with him on a subject about the optics of the deportations. Exactly 2 weeks and 2 days ago in El Salvador, there was over 20,000 soldiers, 25,000 police officers, and 500 spearheaded officers that go to the door of these houses. They have a gang problem over there. They went door to door. There's a video of it, and it was beautiful just before the election here in America. That is the blueprint for Donald Trump to do what he has to do. It doesn't
well, here's
matter
the thing, Ulysses. Let me just chime in with you. El Salvador has a military junta-style government. So they're able to use the military to go after civilians and use them at the president's will. Our Constitution doesn't allow for that. I know the media was trying to join forces with QAnon and say that we could do that and that Trump could control the military to go after whomever he wanted. But the reality is it's just not constitutional. It's un-American in many ways. So that won't happen. Now, that doesn't mean we can't deport people. It just means you can't just, go running door to door. I mean, we have due process. We have the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, all of that stuff. I, for one, I can tell you, I'm not harboring any illegals in my house, but I'll be damned if you're going to come and knock on my door and ask me if you can come in. I'm not letting anybody in here. I don't want the government in my house. So, they can go pound salt. I really don't care what they're here trying to do. So I think there could be disagreement over the optics. Bottom line is, I don't want the government doing anything that they're not supposed to be doing. I think that they should start with those that have active warrants and go after them. They should start with, follow that with the people that are in these facilities and go after them, because we're housing a number of people. We also have a number of people where we allegedly know where they are. And the kids that we haven't lost through the HHS system, we know where they are. And we can say, then we have the good old kids in cages, right? We have those locations, and the ones that Trump made that were more like dormitories. We have those. There's a lot of places we can go to start to eliminate the overcrowding and the problem. You can also close the border. Now, another thing that I think he mentioned, and I agree with him on this, is this. Right now, we're spending a lot of money. We're spending a lot of money to keep people here. We're spending a lot of money to help people that are here with different services and whatnot. And a fraction of that money can be offered to them saying, look, we're not giving out this money anymore. However, you could stay here, live in the shadows, and get nothing. Or we can give you, $5,000. And you just have to leave. And the self-deportation can be incentivized. I think it'll also be incentivized once they realize that there's going to be a crackdown on people hiring people without papers, and there is no guaranteed pathway to citizenship. So, hey, Biden promised you this, that, and the other. That's not going to come to fruition. I think you do all of those things, and you're going to alleviate the bulk of the problem. And again, in my opinion, the worst thing that we have going on here right now is the fact that people can come to the border unvetted. I'm thinking day one, second one, hour one, minute number one, Trump is putting an end to that. Then from there, guys like Kash Patel and guys like Mike Walls and people that are familiar with national security and intelligence hopefully have a pulse on where the bad guys are. Where are these sleeper cells? Where are these people at? What are they doing? Start taking them out, right? Because that's the real threat. The Tren de Aragua gang members that are in Colorado. We know where they are. They're in a bunch of residential buildings. The landlord of those buildings has been on television calling them out. Guess who's going to be there? I'm sure Tom Homan's coming there himself, right? Showing up with El Trompito, in the Beast. And they're going to go ahead and, which is the presidential limo, and go ahead and kick people out. So I think those things are definitely going to happen. The rest of it, I don't know. Honestly, I don't think people that are integrated into it, it's going to be very hard to find people that are not criminals. And I think the emphasis is going to be on those that are criminals. But thank you, brother. I appreciate the call and your listenership. Godspeed to you. Shout out to everybody listening in New York, WGDJ. And let me see. Let us continue. I got one more I want to get to. David, San Francisco, California, calling us online. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, how are you, Rich? Did you hear about the Russian TV recently ran an episode of, I'm not sure if it was a local show or if it was their morning news, but it showed explicit photographs of Melania Trump, nude photographs and whatnot. And then it had included an AI photograph of Trump with a leash on him, crawling on the ground.
Oh, come on, David. The whole thing, talking about Melania Trump and the leash and all. A, I haven't seen this stuff. And B, this stuff has no importance. I wouldn't want to hear about this stuff if it was Barack and Michelle Obama or if it was anybody else. This is what the left has resorted to, right? You want to talk about silly pictures and things like that because you lost. What you should be talking about is, you know what, maybe my very progressive leanings are what tanked this party's chances of winning. You've got to take notice of how badly your side was beaten here and realize this is not just a referendum on Joe Biden. This is a referendum on every last progressive lunatic that wants universal health care, that wants to do all of these big government programs, the Bernie Sanders left. This is it. This is it. Take notice and take heed. America's not interested in that. America's not interested in these politics of division, of talking badly about people saying they're wearing leashes, right? Trump would say people are criminals. He would make fun of their intellect, but he wasn't saying they're wearing leashes. I mean, come on. This is even below the standards you claim Trump has, and it's beneath you, David. Thank you for your call, and we'll continue straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
What kind words from Dr. Phil. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Shout out to my guy, Dr. Phil. Let's continue with your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And let's go to Clint calling us from Utah on KVNU. Clint, what city are you in?
I'm in, goodness, Logan.
Logan, Utah. And what's on your mind tonight, sir?
I just want to say thank you, Senor Rich Valdez, for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
It sure is an honor.
Likewise.
And I want to give out some respect for Jim Bohannon. I did call him his last night on the radio.
Oh,
and as well as your brother, Robert Valdez.
Thank you.
And I was born on the 4th of July. And
cool.
My uncle owned 3 radio stations himself, was a DJ, so I know that life is very busy. He burnt the candle at both ends. And I'd just like to give my respects to all the vets out there. I want to say go Trump 2025 for all the vets. Let's do something.
Amen to that, brother. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. And Godspeed to you and your family as well. Clinton, Logan, Utah, KVNU in the building. Thank you, sir. And let us continue. Let's go to Sarah calling us from Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Sarah, what's going on?
Well, I got 2 things to say. One thing is I think the reason that a lot of Latinos and blacks have gone over the Republican Party is that the crime affects everybody. The immigrant crisis is just hurting everybody. The economy's hurting everybody. So there's a universal thing. Democrats have bad policy. And one last thing, going to go off the script here, but I called Dave. He was talking about that AI image of Trump and Melania on a leash. Well, I got news for him. No one believes Democrats. They don't want to talk about policy. They want to just mention tabloid stuff like that. And secondly, hey, if he's so shocked by that, he should go to a local pride parade and see what those have devolved into. You want to see about fetishes and gross stuff that should be kept behind closed doors. You know, he has no credibility.
Yep, 100% right. Sarah in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW, thank you. Let us continue. Pat in Sedona, Arizona. Arizona putting Trump over the top of 300 electoral college votes. Pat, go right ahead.
Hey, man, it was such a fantastic night, wasn't it? And I thank you for this call, Rich. And props go out to your brother.
Thank you.
And,
and likewise to you. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, and I've got a brother, too, that I lost. But, you know, I'll tell you, so much good is going to happen. And people be patient. He's building a team, a great team of people in our government. And he's going from both sides of the aisle. You talk about a person who's going to try to bring this country together, there's the man that's going to do it. And I'll tell you, Rich, people like you during the dark days of the 21, 22, 23, where you were a voice of light and strength to a lot of us that got so depressed because we saw so much and we had to hear so much, and it just didn't make sense. The second-tier legal system in our country, people being treated more harshly because they're Republicans or they're MAGA people. Not this teacher going after this kid with a hat. Okay, I understand. When I went to high school, we couldn't wear hats in school. I mean, it was just a respect thing. I can understand it. But what he went after was the MAGA hat, and a kid could have worn a T-shirt and would have really
right, exactly.
Went haywire. Yeah, and I tell you, Rich, you and your knowledge. And when you get these guys that disagree, get in here and they use this dog grease and stuff, I'm going to tell you, we are going to be so proud of Ivana. You know, Trump's wife, she is so
Melania.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you're right. She is beautiful. And on top of that, it's just, you know, I try to give people a chance before I cut them off and before, you know, but sometimes people just get too out of hand sometimes. And we go off from the real public discourse here, the issues facing America. That's not an issue facing America. That Putin is using some sort of phony images or whatever the case is. Come on. I don't trust Putin as far as I can throw him. I don't think Trump does either. I don't think anybody does. And I think that's the bottom line here. But that's yet, in my opinion, another attempt to try and somehow smear Trump and somehow use guilt by association, trying to connect him to Vladimir Putin. I don't think it's going to work because the American people have spoken in a remarkable way. Pat in Sedona, Arizona, thank you for your call. Shout out to our friends at KFNX as well. And folks, let's see. We're going to pause right here. We're coming right back to wrap it up in the speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, it's the speed round. Rich Valdez live with you until the end of the show, which is in just a few minutes. Let's go to Ziggy calling us from Ottawa, Illinois. WGIL, go for it.
Well, actually, it is Marseilles, okay?
Wonderful.
Little town, beautiful little town. I want to say thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to the other Dan Bongino, Mark Levin.
Sure.
You people speak the truth. And I'll tell you what, I am 66 years old. For the first time in my life, I voted for Trump. And I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did too, Ziggy. What made you decide to vote for the first time in your life?
Because the other times I really wasn't involved in politics and stuff. And then I met a buddy a few years ago that started explaining politics to me.
Yeah.
And then right now we're living. They're raising the rent through the roof, the prices of food.
Right.
And I'm retired. I got, I'm really busted up, okay?
I hear you, brother. And it sounds like the economy has done it to a lot of people. It's busting up a lot of people across the country. But listen, we all have you in our thoughts and our prayers, and I'm grateful for your call, and I'm happy that you voted for Trump and helped America pull out this historic win. Ziggy in Ottawa, Illinois, thank you again for your kind words. WGIL in the building. God bless America and our veterans. Let's continue. Bill, Jefferson City, Missouri, KTTR. Go for it.
Rich, quickly.
Our resident historian.
Eric Schmidt, our resident
Attorney General. Senator now, right, correct.
He's taking on Chuck Schumer of New York, the majority leader right now, who's trying to do some trick. And he said I heard on Veterans Day, he said, I'm willing to walk this guy down the aisle, Mr. McCormick, who evidently has been announced as the representative from
he won the Senate race in Pennsylvania, and Schumer doesn't want to invite him to the incoming freshman orientation.
Yeah, well, that's it. And now the other thing I wanted to tell you was we had a meeting at the American Legion today, and there was a great talk about a new book called War on Warriors, which I knew nothing about, but it's by some guy by the name of Pete Hegseth, and I thought that was worth talking about.
I know Pete Hegseth. He's fantastic. Let me tell you, he's on the Fox News channel. I've interviewed him before. He's a terrific guy. He's a patriot. I actually hung out with him once at CPAC. His wife, his kid, my kids were there. It was a really nice time. He's a very good author as well. And I'm glad that you recommended his book. Maybe we'll invite him on if he can stay up late. I know he works early sometimes. But Bill, our resident historian, big shout out to you and everybody in Missouri, KTTR. Thank you, sir. Let us continue. Where do I want to go? Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Go for it.
Hi, Rich. I'm going to change subject here because I don't have enough time what I wanted to talk about originally. But with this embargo against China, is there any talk, or have you heard, is Trump going to stop printing his Bibles in the Chinese sweatshop over there? Christian slaves.
I don't know where Lee Greenwood prints those Bibles. I'll find out. But I'm pretty sure if we, I don't know. I'm not touching that one. Frank, we'll touch base with you on that tomorrow. And the music means they're kicking me out. Joe in Salem, Tony in Montreal, Paul in Boise. Thank you, guys. KBFI, KSR, listening online. It's Rich Valdez. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America.